If you love that high-end McGee Co Christmas style but not the price tag, you're going to love today's video. Hey everyone, I'm Sonja and welcome back to DIYs with Sonja, where I share high-end home decor dupes that look designer, not cheap. Today I've put together a beautiful collection of my favorite McGee Co inspired Christmas DIYs. These are elegant, timeless, and so easy to recreate. Perfect if you want the cozy designer holiday look for way less. So grab a hot drink, get comfy, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because there's so much more Christmas inspiration coming your way. Now let's jump into these DIY high-end Christmas decor dupes. For this next project, you're going to need some sort of a Bristol board. I am using one that I had on hand, and I'm going to cut out some strips out of it, 2 strips. Because we are going to be making this brass bow tree topper from McGee Co. It retails for $22 US. I wanted to make this for such a long time and I was trying to figure out the best way to do it, and then I did see Evelyn Hernandez do a similar look, so I thought I'd try it out. Try it out myself. So I am going to you could measure it so it's exactly the same size as the McGee Co inspo. However, I just eyeballed it. I did not need it to be the same size as that one. I really liked the look of it, and that is what I was trying to recreate. So I just took a piece and then I twisted it so that way the two ends meet, and then I into a bow, and then I did that with another piece. And so I took the one strip and I made sure that they are cut the same size. So one will be a little bit longer and that one will be your bottom, and then the shorter one will be your bow. And then you assemble the bows individually, and then you put them together, and then you put the hanging pieces on it. This was so easy to make. You could make even ornaments like this, make them a little bit smaller. You can make them even bigger. It's all up to you. That's the beauty of making things yourself. You can customize them and make them fit your style or your needs. And you can also paint them or put rub and buff or whatever you want on them. They don't have to be the gold. You can paint them any color you want them to be. So now it's time to assemble it. So I'm going to put these two pieces together, and then I'm going to add the hanging pieces. I also cut a little diamond shape to fit right over top of where they were overlapping, because on the original piece it did have or the one from McGee Co, it did have a little, it looked like a little piece on top, so that is what I am adding here. And then I took it outside and I spray painted with my bronze color, as well as this is antique bronze, and then I also spray painted it with some metallic gold. Then while it was still wet, I brought it inside and used a craft sponge just to blend the paint all together. And once it was dry, I added a little bit of hot glue and craft wire to the back of it so that way I can attach it to the top of my Christmas tree. You could also add a clothespin to it if you would like. I just love how easy this was to make and how beautiful it looks on top of my tree. are so popular this year is just some vintage prints inside a frame. I did print out this Christmas picture, Santa picture that I made, but it did not fit inside the frame. So I was debating what to do, and then Sandra had mentioned she had some fabric she wasn't using, and I thought this would be a perfect thing to use here. So I had picked up this frame from Value Village. It was $7.99. I actually love the frame and I didn't mind the print that was in there. So I am carefully going to remove it so I can reuse the frame and safely store the print so that way it doesn't get damaged, because I might be adding it back in and using it as part of my decor outside of Christmas. And for this, I was trying to kind of get the look, the inspiration for this project. It doesn't necessarily look the same, but an inspiration for this project was the same as the inspiration last DIY video I made with prints in it. I'm going to add it here just so you can see what I'm talking about. This obviously isn't an expensive piece at $20. It's very hard to find, and it's even harder if you don't have Target anywhere near you. So I decided to recreate another print because I did needed one more for my master bedroom. And so I took that fabric that Sandra had offered and I added to it. I put the print first just to use it as a guide. I traced it and then cut it out, and then I added it to the frame. I did make sure that it fit before I reassembled it, and I also gave a little dollop of glue just in a couple corners just to keep the fabric in place so it doesn't move while I'm reassembling the frame. You could also take this frame and paint it or add some rub and buff if that's what you wanted, but I thought this frame looked really pretty without any upcycling needed. So I just kept it as is. Next project is another ornament, and this time I picked up these ornaments at a Dollar Tree, and I needed some green ornaments, so we're gonna be making some more suede ornaments, flocked ornaments without flocking. And I am going to make them green because the tree that I added in my living room, I wanted to make it green. So I painted them all green. I gave them um, two coats of color, and between the coats of color paint, I am going to just add some of the iced cappuccino paint to my tops just to make them look a little bit more vintage. And I am using some wet paper towel to do that. I find if I'm using a brush, it just slides off. So I let the first coat of paint dry before I applied the second coat of paint, but the second coat of paint I did not allow to dry. I added some baking soda to them. I feel like these ornaments, there are so many different but yet similar techniques to creating them, and each and every one of them gives you a slightly different look. So as these might be a little bit repetitive, but um, they're all, like I said, all a little different, and they do give you a unique look. So I love mixing and matching these techniques on my ornaments so that way I can have a variety of them. And most of my ornaments on a couple of my trees are all homemade ornaments, and they all look a little different. So once it had completely dried, I brushed it all off. At this point, you could like I said, many different techniques. You can add rub and buff, you can add a sponge on, dab on a little bit of gold paint, but I am going to keep mine just like this. You can also spray some sealant on them so that way the baking soda stays on permanently so it doesn't over the years rub off completely. But I just love the way these turned out. I think they are a perfect addition to my new For my tree. Next DIY, I picked up these Dollar Tree bells. They were $1.25. I'm pretty sure every Dollar Tree has these, and I'm going to be recreating this look, although I'm going to be using 3 bells, not 5, because I'm going to be making 2 of them. So I removed all the little embellishments that the bells had, and then I went in with, again, those 3 colors, spun gold, um, yellow gold, and then cinnamon. But I'm not going to be painting these. I tried painting them and I felt that the paint wasn't really going on as well as I would like. So I went in and then I ended up dabbing the paint on instead of brushing it on, which you will see in just a minute. And I had to work in stages for this. So I went first with the spun gold, and I only did the top part. The bottom part is a little bit flatter. So I let the bottom so I did the top part and then I let it fully dry before I did the bottom part, and then I repeated the same process with all the paints that I was adding, although I was mixing the next 2 paints together and dabbing them together at the same time. But I did do one half first and then the next half once it's dried. So this project did take a little bit of time, but the end result is so worth it. For past few years, I have been obsessed with decorating with bells, whether that's the vintage cowbells or just any gold rustic looking bells. And so I wanted to recreate this because I wanted to add something to my outdoor wreath, and which is another project in this DIY video that I will be sharing. And I wanted to spruce up my wreath, but I also wanted to add bells to it. So I decided to make my own to add to it. And I am obsessed with how all those 2 projects came together and how it looks on my front door. So once they were painted and dried, I went ahead and got some rope. I have just some twine, and I also have some thicker rope that I'm going to be using. And I wanted to make like a door hanger almost with the rope. So I went ahead and I tied a loop, and then I went with a thicker rope and I wrapped it around and created a little bit of a longer loop at the top, just to kind of recreate that look that the bells or here had. And so that way I can hang them up on my door, I can hang them up on my banister, my mantle, wherever I choose to use them, if I choose to use them outside of my wreath. And as I mentioned before, I am grouping them by 3, and I'm making them 3 different lengths. So when you're cutting your rope, you want to make sure that it's cut different lengths, or that you tie a knot at a different length. And as I mentioned before, I just love the way these guys turned out. And I think it's such an inexpensive project to give you that high-end elevated look. Especially I I've decorated with these white bells before, but I am so feeling the traditional colors this year, along with some vintage and earthy tones, and that is what all of my decor in the house is, with some nostalgic pieces sprinkled in throughout. So if you ever want to check out how I decorate with all of these things, I do have a home channel where I share all that, and it's linked down below. So let me know what you guys think about these guys. And now we are moving on to my wreath. This might be familiar to some of you that have been around for a while. This was originally Michael's wreath that had a lot of stuff on it. A few years back, I took most of it, most of the embellishments off and added extra branches to it, like cedar. And then I also had some pine needles that I added to it and some blackberries, and it's been serving me quite well. But I wanted to spruce it up a little bit as I've seen this wreath that I absolutely love. Now, this one is from McGee Co. So I guess we do have one McGee Co inspiration here. And so I wanted to kind of recreate it, but I didn't want to go out and spend money on a wreath, because this one was in a perfect shape still, and it's pretty good quality. I did spend about, I think they were about $50, but they did have buy one get one free at Michael's. But I'm talking about probably going back about maybe even 10 years ago. And like I said, it's still in a really good shape. So I did wanted to spruce it up a little bit and give it some new life. So I'm starting off with tying up the twine, and now I'm going to take this twine and just wrap it around and make it a fairly thick top. I'm also going to be adding some cedar picks that I have. These came from Timu, which I will show you in just a little bit. I was actually thinking about maybe adding some pine cones, some more pine cones to it, because it does have couple you just can't see. So I was thinking about getting a bit bigger ones and adding those, but I am not doing that in this video. That's something that I might decide to do. Do you guys use real garland wreaths? I did make a real wreath once and that I used on my side door, and I loved it, and it lasted me the whole season. I just went ahead and cut some branches out of my kitchen, out of my backyard, and use those. But I think I did share that on my channel, but probably looking back several years ago. I know you can buy them, but I just wanted to know, do you guys have a fake one, or do you guys use the real ones? I do love the look of the real ones, and it probably would save me some storage space, but I don't love spending the money every year. So make sure when you are tying these up that you leave yourself an end to tie it to. I kind of wrapped it in there, so I was just trying to tie it to a loop. So when I did my next one, I did leave an end. I am not sharing how I did the next one because I have I it's just a repetitive thing. So I'm sharing with you how I did just the one of them. So here I am adding the cedar picks. Like I said, these came from Timu. They were very inexpensive. I will link them down below. And what do you guys think? I think this is looking really good, and I think it's going to look absolutely spectacular with my DIY bells. First DIY, you are going to need some oranges as well as baking sheet lined with some racks, or you can just put your oranges straight onto the rack. And we are going to be recreating these orange slices from McGee Co. And as you can see, the set of 12 of them is $22. I had picked up my oranges. They were $1.77 a pound, and this was just under $5, and it gave me double the amount. You're also going to need some twine so you can attach it to the dried slices so they are able to be hung as ornaments. I am using half of them as ornaments and half of them will be as bowl fillers. So you want to slice your oranges about 1/4 of an inch. And I did measure just so I can get a guide, and then the rest of them I just sliced using that first one as a guide. You can put these directly onto your oven racks in the oven. I just thought it might be a little bit less messy if I lined my baking sheet with parchment paper, and then I added some racks to them. These are racks from our smoker, stand-up smoker, and they fit perfectly into my onto my baking sheet. Once I had sliced all of my oranges, I'm going to add them to the baking sheet. Now you want to preheat your oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Mine KitchenAid Pro Style oven did not have a 200 bake setting, but it did have a warming setting and proofing setting, and warming setting is at 200, so that is what I turned on for mine. When you are doing this project, I just want to let you know you want to give yourself plenty of time. I'm talking 6-7 hours. It is a very easy project to do, but it does take time. So if you do not want to leave your oven unattended, you have to be home for the duration of, and it took, for me, it took 6.5 hours. And then I had couple, 2 or 3 of them that were a little bit thicker, and I had to leave those for a little bit longer. I have read blogs where they said it would take 4 to 5 hours, and some did it at 250. Now, some of them said not to do it at 250 because that's when they will burn a lot easier. Whereas if you do them on a lower for longer, they won't burn as quickly. So you do have to keep an eye on them once you are approaching that 5 or 6 hours. I would say at 5 hours, start checking them. If you've never done this, I would start checking them at 4 hours just to make sure, depending on what your oven is like. But before I put mine in the oven, I did take a napkin and or paper towel and just dried them all up, just the tops because they are very wet. And I think this does help the drying process as well. You can also use your dehydrator to do this if you have one, or your air fryer also has a dehydrate. Um, well, mine does. The Ninja Double one has a dehydrate setting as well. However, I would not be able to put all of these into my little drawers on the air fryer, so I chose to do it in the oven. And here they are. This is what they look like once they were dry, or baked. I did read somewhere that you could sprinkle right when they come out and they're hot. You could sprinkle some powdered sugar onto them, and they will give them a shiny look. However, I was a little bit afraid of doing that for storage purposes, that it might create some mold. While they are stored away. Not sure if that would happen. If you've ever done that and stored them successfully in a Ziploc bag with your Christmas decor, let us know down below. I did take a large needle and cut up some twine to the length that I thought would be great for hanging. However, I could not thread the twine through because it was a little bit thicker than the opening, so I did just wrap it around and pushed it through, and that seemed to have worked. You could also use a hot glue gun and just add a little dollop on top and attach your twine to that. I thought this was a little bit nicer looking than having that hot glue on there. I know that McGee Co, the price wasn't that astronomical at $22 for set of 12. However, this was um, a lot cheaper, at $5 for the double the amount. And the plus part of this was it made your house smell so nice. And I think that this DIY, these ornaments are gonna look great with my theme. I'm going for more of a natural rustic look this year. I've kind of went that way last year as well, but I am focusing more on it this year than I did last year. Like I said, I love the way these turned out, and I think they are going to look great on my tree. For my next DIY, I couldn't believe my luck when I saw these three bells on Facebook Marketplace for $10. I was very excited and knew exactly what I wanted to do with them. McGee and Co. in their catalog has these three rattan bells for $188. And as soon as I saw these, I knew exactly what I was going to do with them. They did, as you can see, they're red, they're not very attractive looking, and they smelled really, really bad. So I did take the rusty wire off, and then I ended up giving them a good cleaning to get rid of the smell. For the paint, I did go with a chalk paint in the Annie Sloan Old Ochre, just because it is a beige paint. That was the only reason why I'm using it. I've had it for a while. It is kind of starting to get thick, meaning I need to use it up, so I don't have to add too much water to it. And I've been using it for different projects, and this one was also one of them. And chalk paint also, I find, does a lot better coverage than acrylic paint, meaning you probably won't have to go with it several different with several different coats, especially because I was painting over red. I did get some water and water the paintbrush as well, just to get that helps to get into little nooks and crannies if the paint is a little bit more wet. And you definitely want to paint the inside and the outside of the bell. Once all the three bells were painted and they had some time to dry, I went in with some brown and then also added a little bit more of this old ochre to it, and some water, and I just dabbed it with some paper towel, water, and then into the brown paint, and just to add a little bit of depth to the paint, and so it's not so beige. And you want to blend until it looks like it's always been there. I was absolutely thrilled with the way these turned out. I think they are such a great dupe for those bells, and you never know what you can find in your thrift store or at your on your Facebook Marketplace. So make sure you keep checking. For your next DIY, this can be absolutely free depending on what you have at home on hand. So we are going to be recreating these bleached pine cones, and set of 15 is $12. Again, not overly expensive, but if we can do it for free, why not? So I did have to go buy bleach because I don't typically have bleach at home. Um, I just buy it when I need it and usually use it all up. So you're gonna need something to soak your pine cones in, and I have a variety of styles of pine cones and sizes. And you are also going to have to give yourself time because this took 24 hours plus some drying time. So pretty much almost 2 days worth of DIYing. Again, not something that is very involving, and this one you could leave unattended if you wanted to. But for this, you will need also some water, and it will be 2 parts water to 1 part bleach. And then if you saw me trying to fit that plate, and you will need something that will keep the pine cones submerged so they don't pop up, so something heavy to put on top. And this goes without saying that if you are, whenever you're working with bleach, make sure you are very careful so you don't get your clothes bleached or wear clothes that you don't care if they do get bleached. Cover your work area and make sure you wash your hands thoroughly after working with bleach, because that can linger on your hands for a while, and if you touch something, it will bleach it instantly. I did stir them a little bit just to mix them up, just so that way I feel like all of it was covered up with this mixture. And then I add in my plate, and I did leave this out on my deck on top of the fire pit so the dogs wouldn't knock it down. And this is what they looked like once I had took them out 24 hours later. As you can see, some the smaller ones were almost white, some of the bigger ones not so much. I did end up putting them in the oven for about 4 hours at the 200 setting, and then they opened up while they were there. This just speeded up the process of drying. You can also leave them to air dry. And as you can see, the ones that looked brown, once I took them out, were actually a lot more bleached than the smaller ones that were completely white once they came out. I absolutely love the way this turned out. I think it's going to be such a great bowl filler, and it's going to also look great mixed in with just some regular pine cones. Next year was also another one that was very inexpensive to do. I had this frame at home from a different project, but it is from Dollar Tree, so you can pick it up for $1.50 in Canada or $1.25 in US. You can use any frame you want. There is no it's a look for less, right? So anything you have at home. And we are going to be recreating this look. It is a holiday tree art for $42. Now I am going to do my own spin on it, but that was an inspiration piece for me. So if I was to do that one, I would have just left the frame as is, or would have tried to find a frame that had a little bit of a thicker border. But I'm going to make this more suitable for my decor in the area that I'm planning on using it. So I used the metallic gold spray paint just to give it some color, and I'm not doing like 100% coverage. I do want some of that black to show through. So once this frame had dried, so once this frame has dried, or I should say while it was drying, I went ahead and created some of my own art to use. And I use Canva to do so, and I will actually include it down in the description box for free. If you want to use any of it, you can download it and use it yourself. So as you saw, I created a vintage Christmas tree and some of the Nutcracker music notes. So I am going to be using the Nutcracker music notes for my frame. And for this DIY, I might create another one with that Christmas tree. And I don't know if you saw my DIY that I did for fall, where I used a print that I printed and I added Mod Podge so it looked like it was painted. So you could totally do that on the Christmas tree as well. I wouldn't necessarily do it on here, but hey, you can do whatever you want if that's what you want to do. So I'm just cutting out here because the way I printed it, the burnt looks, I just wanted to cut that out. It's gonna go on the back of the cardboard, so I didn't want that white to be there. And here it is. I think this is such a classic look, and it's gonna go so well with most of my decor anywhere I choose to use it. Next DIY is another ornament DIY. I absolutely love making ornaments, my own ornaments for Christmas. I gift these, I use them myself, and I think the possibilities are endless. So for this, I'm using gold, brown, and red paint, and I am going to be recreating this glass iron ornament that are $12. Now, these ones are not glass because I do not want glass in my house. I run a home daycare and that can be just a whole disaster with glass ornaments. So I picked these up for $1.50 at a Dollar Tree. And I'm also going to be using some flour. So the first thing that I'm going to be doing is adding 2 coats of this brown paint to 2 of them, and then I'm gonna do 2 coats of the red paint to 2 of them. Now, originally I was going to use a Christmas red, but I did find it was a little bit bright, so just decided to use a deep red instead of Christmas red, and the brown is called um, burnt umber. I think that's what the brown color is called. While the first coat was drying, I did go ahead and spray paint the little caps of the ornaments, and I use dark walnut to do so. I just thought it gave them that vintage look. You could also do, if you have like what is the antique brass would look good as well. Gold would look good. Even just black would look good as well. I think it adds such an elevated look to the ornaments. So I did that while the first coat was drying. Then I applied the second coat of the paint, and then I did not wait for the second coat to dry before I dusted it with some flour. This is definitely not a new technique. You want to cover the whole ornament with flour, at least I did for mine, and then you want to let it completely dry before you brush it off. I've shared these type of DIY ornaments last year. I am doing something different after the flour is dusted off. Now, I thought I did show how I was dusting the flour off, but the camera wasn't on when I was doing it. So I'm just showing you how I did it. I used a bristling brush, a stippling brush, sorry, bristling brush, stippling brush, and we want it to be dry and clean, and just dust all the flour off. You can also use a rag to remove the flour, but I like this way better. Now, I was going to use, I have Annie Sloan Antique Gilding Wax, which is almost like a rub and buff, but it did not really work very well with flour on there. So I ended up doing just 2 different types of gold that I had on hand of acrylic paint. One was spun gold and the other one was yellow gold. And I kind of blended the 2 colors together on the ornament, not while I was applying it. And I was using brush, and then I did end up using a napkin or a paper towel to do that. You can do this any color that you would like. As you saw, theirs was a little bit more on the antique black kind of color, which you could totally do, and it had a little bit of sparkle, which you could add to it as well, if you didn't have sparkly black paint. But you just want to continue doing this until you blend the colors together, and you still want to leave some of that bottom color showing through, and the flower just gives it a little bit more texture. And here is what they look like all done. I absolutely love the way these look. And adding some ribbon to them definitely makes them look even more expensive. We've all seen, this is not necessarily a price dupe, it's more or less finding them in store. You've all seen the flocked ornaments. Everybody has them. McGee Co has them. Pottery Barn has them. These are more pricier, but you can also find them at Michael's. I haven't been able to find them at home since we do not have Target or Hobby Lobby. So I wanted brown ones. I did find beige ones and black ones at Michael's, but I could not find brown ones. And to get the flocking material, It is so expensive to get it shipped to Canada. I've found them on Etsy, and I think for one color it would cost me over $30 for a little bag of it. So I've been trying to figure out a way to create these without the flocking, and this came pretty close, and I was quite happy with the way it turned out. So I started off with spray painting the ornaments. I had these flat ornaments on hand. I bought those on sale 2 years ago at Michael's. So they had come in handy for creating DIYs, and I didn't want to go out and buy some more because I want to use up some of my stash. So this is why I'm using the flat ones, but this would work for round ones as well. They sell lots of them at Dollar Tree. I'm using dark walnut. Again, I want to create that brown, although this dark walnut was a little bit darker, but it worked really well as a base. And then while I was spray painting, I also took the lids and I spray painted them with that metallic gold paint that I just used for the candle holders. And I think this just gives it that more of a high-end look. If these are painted, you can also use a rub and buff on them, or I haven't had luck with just going straight with acrylic paint. I find that it doesn't really stick on, so I always like to spray paint a base color, and then if you still want to add more color to it, a little bit of a different color, you can go in and it makes the paint stick a little better. Now, if you have seen a lot of my DIY videos where I create these type of ornaments, I usually put the flower directly onto the wet paint. But I watched a video on Instagram, I believe, and she was saying to let the paint dry completely, then get the ornament wet with water, uh, and then add flour. This way the flour is not gonna cling on to paint and pull it off, which happened to me before. Even when the ornaments were dry, if there was just a little patch of maybe a wet bubble or something, it would pull the paint off. So this just makes sure that that paint stays on there. So I did this. I took just a spray sprayed it. You could also just wet them um, with a brush, or just run them over the water, I guess, too. You could do that as well. It looked like the water was sliding right off, but the ornaments were wet. So I was able to get that flour to stick there. And you want to let this completely dry. And with it being water, you could tell uh, when it was dry and when it wasn't dry. So once they were fully dry, I took a dry brush. This could be just any brush, as long as it's dry, and just brushed all the flour off. Now, once I felt that all the loose flour was off, I went ahead and took some of my brown paint from Dollar Tree. It's an acrylic brown paint. I think it's called milk chocolate, I believe, and then just dabbed it with a wet sponge on. And this gave it that almost felt texture, which the flocked ornaments have. So as you can see, the base color didn't really matter in this case. You probably could have just sprayed it with water and then went ahead with flour, because the paint was completely covering it. Now you could also just leave it, uh, brush off some more flour off and leave it, and that would give you a different look as well. So lots of choices here, and of course the color is also a choice. So I went with brown because that is what I wanted. Now I was finding that the brown was a little, I want to say, maybe a little darker, or too brown. So I am going to be adding a little bit of white to this as well. I was just trying to get it as close to the color that I had in my on my mind that these should look like. I just love the way these turned out, and I can't wait to use them on my front foyer tree, as I'm changing the whole look of that tree this year. I have been obsessed with juniper berries this year, but they are impossible to find in my where I live. You can get them on Amazon.com by from a floor, but they do not ship to my um, to Ontario. Pottery Barn also has some as well, which are a little too expensive for me. So I decided to make my own. So I went to the on search for some stems that I can use to recreate this. So I picked up these two stems, two different stems. One is looks a little bit frosted because originally I was thinking of using those berries. And then the other one was just a variety of cedar branches with some red berries and some pine cones. So I needed to disassemble everything and create my own. I did decide to make three of these, and I ended up using all the branches, even the frosted ones, but I did not use any pine cones or berries. So here is what they look like. I wish the branches were a touch more droopier, but we can shape them and mold them if that's what we want. I also left the long stems on them because I'm just going to bend them if I need to add them to a shorter vase. I also remember I had some loose cedar branches from a garland, and I added those as well. That gave me a bit of more of a droopiness that I was looking for. Since I decided that white berries were too long, was going to make my own using some air dry clay that I had left over from the daycare when we were making Mother's Day presents. So I just wanted to warm up the clay in my hands, and then I just made ones that were not a lot smaller than the white berries, but definitely smaller. And I just rolled them all into little balls. I think I made altogether about 30 of them. However, I think I did not use three of them, so I used 27 altogether. Then I took all of the blue paints that I had, trying to figure out a color that would work the best for these berries. I did end up mixing a couple different colors just to achieve the look that I was going for. I did not wait for these to fully dry before I went ahead and did that. I was going to use this stick to put the berries on for painting, but it was too big, so I just ended up rolling them in the paint. And I forgot to mention that I also got some sugar, just normal sugar. And once I was done rolling them in the paint, I dipped them into sugar. So it gave them a little bit of that frosted look. And then I repeated this process for all of them. A little time consuming, but so worth it. And then I went ahead and I had glued them onto random spots on to my branches. To I did look at the picture just to kind of get an idea how the juniper berries were on those far branches, and I was trying to recreate that look. So here they all are on the branches, and I did allow them to dry fully before I proceeded to the next step. I wasn't planning on doing a next step, but the more I was looking at them, I felt like the blue needed to be tamed down a little bit. So once they were fully dry, I went in with some white paint and just added and a small brush and just added a little bit of white paint um to them, just to tone down the blue a little bit. I think these turned out so pretty, and for under I think it came up to about $11. I can't complain. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you got tons of inspiration from these McGee Co inspired Christmas DIYs. If you love this video, make sure to check out my Christmas DIY playlists. They're filled with even more high-end holiday decor dupes and cozy decorating ideas that you can recreate on a budget. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who loves beautiful Christmas decor as much as we do. Until next time, happy decorating and DIYing, and I'll see you in the next one.